very excited to go through this today and really spend the time to get focused on the new year and come up with a new plan for this year. So whatever goals you do have for 2026, the whole idea of today is to really sit down and hash out exactly what you want to do. And we'll be talking about all different types of marketing, a bunch of different options there. The related to websites, SEO, ads, all kinds of fun stuff. Basically, what we're going to be covering today is we're going to set our goals for 2026. We're going to talk all about websites, how to optimize it for conversions, and then how to optimize it, also your Google listing. And then we're going to talk about Google Ads, Meta Ads, social media, and then create a custom plan based on where you're at now and what your goals are. So this will be, an interactive session. I'll have a workbook here in a second, and then we're actually going to calculate your marketing budget based off the goals that you have. So we have some spreadsheets and some really cool web applications that can allow you to basically set what your goals are, and then have you set your revenue goal, set your closing percentage for your sales, and then we're going to dial in basically how many leads you need to get to hit that goal to basically achieve that goal for this year. So real quick, just scan that QR code. If you want to check out the workbook, you can just make a copy of that. And that's just going to make it a lot easier. So you can write down all the different things we'll be talking about. So every little piece of information that I'll have you write down, related to your goals and, what you want to do for this year, you can all do it in the workbook. So just scan that QR code, and then I'll give you a couple minutes and we'll go from there. All right. So if we haven't met, my name is Alex Danner. I'm the owner and founder of Fence and Deck Marketers, which is a marketing agency that works exclusively with fencing and decking companies. And here at FDM, we do a lot of different stuff related to basically just providing good quality content. So obviously we do these webinars each month, and we do some collaborations with some of the top manufacturers in the fencing and decking industries. But we also wrote the book, Best Known Fence and Deck Contractor, have a podcast, Fence and Deck Mastery, where we have all kinds of guests that come on there, successful companies, contractors, manufacturers, vendors, and then also a lot of social media stuff. So if you're ever curious, you can check that out. Also part of the AFA and NADRA, and really heavily involved with those, along with a bunch of different speaking engagements. So just got back 5 weeks within the past, I guess, since the beginning of the year. Had 4 different weeks where I was traveling to different shows and things like that. So do a lot of different trainings for contractors there. Oops, jumped ahead. Okay, so to get started with all this, I want to make sure we're setting clear goals with this. So, when we start the year, I know we're a little bit into February, and we've actually ran this webinar a couple times before, but I know some people are getting a little bit of a later start, so I wanted to host it again. So, yeah, basically just kind of like it to look at it this way. If you're not setting goals for the year, and this is pretty common, most people don't set clear goals, and it's pretty much the equivalent of if you're trying to sail and you don't have an actual sail on the boat. You're just kind of sitting there, whatever happens to you happens, and you don't have any real direction of anywhere you're going. So it's going to be very hard to get where you need to go on that boat, just like it's going to be very hard to get where you want to go in the business if you don't have a sail that's kind of pushing you towards where you want to go. So when you add that sail, of course, that's what's going to, that's the equivalent of having those clear goals. And, as a company, having those clear goals that are written out that you can share with the team, having them written down versus just kind of in your head is a big deal. And, it's what's going to help build that momentum as the year goes on, to keep the team motivated, on the same page, and really working towards the same thing. So there's this study. It's probably my favorite study that I've ever heard about, and it really changed my life because it was just so mind blowing to me. But basically, Harvard did a study where they interviewed graduates, and they said that out of all those graduates, 84% of them had no specific goals. 13% had goals, but they were not written down. So they were just in their head. And then 3% had clear written goals and plans to accomplish them. So of that 13%, that had goals and were in their head, but they weren't writing them down, those people were earning on average twice as much as the 84% that had no goals whatsoever. And then the craziest part of all this is the people that had goals, that 3% that had goals, they're written down, they're very clear. Those people are we're earning on average 10 times as much as the other 97% put together. So those people, because they knew what they wanted, because they were writing it down and they had a clear plan for all of that, they were earning, as you can see, a lot more than the rest of them. So I would say it's usually pretty rare to hear people that are, I guess, writing these down. I didn't used to do this with my business, and that's something I changed and had a really big effect on it too. But because you're here and everyone here is going to be taking care of this process or going through it, it's going to be a really good plan, and making it more likely that you hit the goals for this year. All right. So to get started here with that workbook, this slide here. So what I want you to write down is what the revenue was for 2025. So there should be a section in that workbook for that. And then also put down the typical number of jobs that you run per month, what you did, last year. And then also the average ticket price, what your sales closing percentages in the field, and then also the number of trucks, or probably crews is a better way to look at it. So the number of crews that you ran in 2025. Okay, so next we want to talk about the goals for this year. So I want you to think about what that annual revenue target would be. Thinking about how many crews that you would ideally like to have, if you need to add more, what that ideal number would be to handle that revenue. Also talking about any hires. So maybe you want to hire a project manager, a salesperson, a VA, office assistant, any kind of hire that would be something that you think is going to help facilitate that growth. And really just any big changes. So maybe it's not just a hire, but you want to, I don't know, maybe you want to build a showroom, if you want to add some, buy a truck, add to your fleet, whatever the case may be. I guess just any big changes, substantial changes that you're looking to make within the business. Make sure to write that down. And then the most critical of them all is going to be the why. So, rather than just, it's very common for businesses to not write out their goals and what they want to hit or be very clear about those. But a lot of times it's also just kind of throwing out a number, say you wanted to go from 1 to 2 million, or 2 to 3, or, 5 to 10, whatever the case may be. But not really thinking about what or why you want to do it. So if you're not thinking about what is behind it and you just kind of have some arbitrary number, it's going to make it a lot less likely that you're going to hit it. So, if you want to have maybe more time with family, or you wanted to, I don't know, buy a new house, get a new truck, go on vacation, take the family on vacation, something like that. Just as a little side note here, when I do my yearly goals, I actually record myself. I make a video of myself as if I'm that future person, and I basically record it as if I'm like that, what I would expect or what I would hope to be like at the end of the year. So I would talk as if I've already hit the goals that I have. I don't know, somebody read some research and some books that say that kind of helps to rewire your brain in that way. But it's also really cool at the end of the year, especially if you hit it. If you don't hit it, it's not as exciting. But I started doing that. To me, it seems like it makes a big difference. I had a big goal of being able to purchase property at the end of this year. And, my goal stated that in the video, and I was able to kind of look back and feel accomplished about it because I was actually able to. So that kind of helped me, every little thing helps, I guess, to keep pushing you forward and, to hit that goal that you have, not necessarily just a number, for not having anything behind it. So try to think about that why, and really anything you feel like you really want, and write that down. I'll give you another minute or so. Hope I'm giving everyone enough time, but let me know if not. All right. So now that we know our goals, what we want to do, we want to talk about what you can do to make it a reality, what you need to be planning for 2026, and putting together your marketing strategy. So just to give you an idea of what we do and also what we see give the best results, basically. So, starting at one, your website, you got to have a really well put together website that's built for SEO and built for rankings. We're going to talk about each one of these individually. You also have your SEO, your Google pay-per-click ads, your local services ads, which are best for fencing, not decking. You have your Facebook Meta ads, and then you also have your social media. So we'll dive into these more individually here in a sec. Okay, so depending on your size of the business, I know everyone's at different sizes, but because I have been asked this before and people just kind of wonder what they should focus on first. So I wanted to give just kind of a general, this is not an exact thing here, but whether you're just getting started out or a little bit farther down the road, to give you an idea of what we seems to work the best. And, with all the clients that we've worked with, kind of a general timeline that seems to be best. So if you're just starting out, 0 to 500,000, that would be, you got to get your Google listing, you got to be getting reviews, you got to have some kind of website, and then doing some kind of social media, even if it's just random posts here and there. 500 to a million, that's when you want to start thinking about a more professional website, paying somebody or getting somebody to build something that's really nice, something that's competitive, it's built for SEO, and actually start doing SEO. So it's important to make sure you get that website to work for you with SEO. That's how you're going to get attention, get people coming to your website. 1 to 2 million, that's when the Google ads start to become more important and frankly more affordable because they're expensive, at least 3,000 a month, usually more than that, because of the cost. 4 to 5 is probably our average. You just want to make sure you have the budget, can use those, but Google ads are a great way to basically expand your service areas even further. And then 2 to 3, the Facebook ads, developing that omnipresence. So following people around, they go to your website, your social media, wherever, you can show ads to them and try to stay top of mind. And then 3 million, that's where I start to say, the social media side, paying somebody to help you do that makes more sense. Out of all these, social media is definitely going to be the least lead flow. It's not going to be a ton of direct lead flow. That's why I always recommend, not paying, I guess, somebody to film all of your content and kind of follow you around, get that really high quality content. To do that, you're going to need to hire and pay somebody, pretty significant amount of money. And because the lead flow is not that great compared to the rest, that's why I say kind of wait till you get a little bit bigger to start doing that. Okay, so before we get into more details on the website and all of this, just kind of curious to see what everyone thinks, where you think you need to focus most. So out of all the different things we talked about, or really just anything that's in your head at this point, where do you think you need to focus on the most with your marketing, offline, online? Put that on there. And if you want to share, feel free to. Whatever you're thinking is kind of the main focus at this point. Marketing, anything specific, Jose, besides like specific to marketing? Is it the website or ads, anything, or just overall getting leads? Yeah. Google business profile. Yep. Alex. Social media. Facebook ads. All right. Got a pretty wide array here. That's good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start off with the website because the website is the hub. No matter what types of marketing you do, people are going to be finding the website. So even if you're doing digital, like we're talking about here, or you're doing offline, if you're doing a billboard, if you're doing mailers, whatever the case may be, people are going to find your website. So any marketing you do, if you don't have the website dialed in, it's going to affect everything else. So you want to make sure before you put a bunch of money into marketing, you want to make sure that website's in really good shape and is built to convert, rank on Google, and all that stuff. So I like to say, the just kind of an analogy here, basically like, if you're talking about a deck, I'm sure everybody, anybody that's a deck builder here gotten a lead that they want to resurface the deck. They want to put on new boards. Maybe they want to replace it with composite because they're currently using wood. and you basically go under the deck or you pull some boards up, whatever, and you see that everything is rotted. The joists are all rotted or the stringers, whatever. Everything underneath is not in good shape or the foundation is not holding it up properly. In that case, hopefully you're not going to just redo, put on some new boards. You're going to have to fix the underlying issue. And that's the same thing with the website. You want to make sure basically all of that is in place. The website's almost like that strong foundation. So without that built properly, the rest is not going to work out too well. So just curious, is anybody here happy with their website? Just put in a one if you're happy with it. Okay. So a lot of unhappy people with their websites. So um what we'll basically be doing on this is diving in deep into what can be updated on the website specifically. So just kind of some stats behind this. 75% of homeowners do some level of online research. So most people are going to be looking at it and seeing exactly what's if they're going to spend a lot of money on a fence or a deck, they're going to be going to online looking around. And 94% of website first impressions are design related. So uh, if you go to a website, I'm sure everybody's done this. You go to a site and it just loads and just not really sure what you're looking at. It looks very sloppy, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that first impression is set how you want. And then 38% of visitors abandon sites if it has a poor design or irrelevant content. So if the website just doesn't make any sense or, is just hard to comprehend or load slow, anything like that, a very substantial amount of people will actually jump off it. Okay, so this is kind of a checklist here. This is not every single thing, but when you have a website, you got to make sure it's mobile friendly. It's like 55% of traffic online is to mobile. So if you don't have a mobile friendly website, that's a problem. Making sure you're taking high quality images and videos. So getting some kind of photographer or someone that's savvy with a camera to take those. Also, the contact forms, putting those on each page is a good idea, just like testimonial widgets. The name, the address, and phone number, putting that in the footer, making sure the phone number is big and easily accessible. You don't want to hide how people can contact you. So having that big phone number in the header and also using it to follow you around. So as you scroll, being able to see that phone number at all times is important. The service pages, which we'll talk about here in a second, need to have that. And then whatever pages you do have on the website, making sure they have enough content on them. So typically 700 words or more is what you're looking for there. The city pages. So for whatever cities you do work in, you want to make sure you have a separate page on the website for each city. So if you have, if you sit down and you think about all the areas you want to work in, make a hierarchy list of the top 20 to 30 cities, and then create a separate page for each one of those for your service. So if you're a deck builder, have a page for, the premier deck builder in city one, another page for the premier deck builder in city two, and then kind of going on down the line there. The About Us page, that's huge too. Most people are going to be going to the About Us page. So having some pictures of the team or, it could even be a family picture of the owner. Something on there is a good idea. And then just making sure it's really fast is a big deal too. Okay, so I want to talk about conversion rate because this is something that's often missed with websites. So if you're everybody wants a nice looking website and that's important. It's got to be attractive. But if it's not built to convert people, that's also going to be a big problem. So if you don't have things like the forms or the testimonial widgets or nice photos or the phone number, accessible in the header, you can have a lesser conversion rate, which is going to mean less overall revenue based off of the same number of visitors potentially. So just kind of an example here, say you got 500 visitors per month to the website and 5% of those converted, that would be 25 calls or leads. Say that your sales percentage is 30%. So that would mean out of that 500, you would get 7 jobs. This is more on the decking side, but say you got a 5,000 profit, that would mean 35,000 in revenue based off of those 500 visitors. But if you significantly increased the conversion rate and you had more people going there, more people reaching out, say it was 15%, that would be 75 calls or leads. You would have the same sales percentage, but 22 jobs, and with that same profit, 110,000. So something that a lot of times is not taking advantage of is this conversion rate optimization. And if you do structure the website in a proper way, like we were talking about here, it's going to help out a lot. So like the sticky header, the big phone number, testimonials, contact forms, nice images, all of those things are going to mean more people that are coming to the site are reaching out, which at the end of the day is going to be more revenue. So updating the website, getting that in order can a lot of times mean just more jobs in general. And we've seen this quite a bit. We don't do this anymore, but way back when we would just do websites. So we would build a website for a company that had basically no, not very great rankings. They weren't getting hardly any leads from the website. But when it was built up and built for conversions, even without SEO, he substantially increased how many people were actually reaching out. So a lot more people were, he was getting several leads a week versus prior, it was like, I think like a couple a month. So I've seen this firsthand. It is a big deal. So make sure that, the website is built using these strategies we're talking about. Okay. So to give you an idea of a website here, this is just an example that I chose here, but basically you can kind of see a couple of things. So the phone number, like we were saying, is really big. You can see some trust symbols letting them know, who they work with, and they're part of the decking association. The testimonial widgets you can see if you scroll down here, and clear call to actions. You can say get started or contact us, and you can see this button here follows you around as you scroll. So all these pieces make it easy for someone to reach out and figure out how to contact you, because the last thing you want to do is keep people guessing. They're not really sure, especially if it's someone that's not great with computers or technology. You want to make it as obvious as possible for them to figure out how to reach you. Okay, so is anybody here, put a 1 in the chat if you're missing an About Us page on your website, or an About Us page with pictures on it. Let me put it that way. So anyone missing it with to Alex, and we'll be fixing that for you. Okay, Rob too. So this is just an example here, but if you don't have, basically if somebody wants to spend a lot of money on a new fence or a new deck, they're going to want to see who's buying the company. So it's best to have some team pictures. If you can get a photographer in there, someone savvy with a camera, and take some team pictures, that's a good idea. But, you want to make it, show that you're a reasonable company, easy to work with, that kind of thing. So having some photos there, some happy looking people will go a long way. With all the changes going on in online marketing, you have your AI is just taking over, in terms of what's everyone's talking about. That's what everyone's thinking about now. But, SEO, that's kind of always been, it's always been something most people are doing to get good results. But since things have changed and AI has come about and it's kind of going in that direction, just curious what everyone thinks here. So put a 1 in the chat if you think SEO is as important as ever, and put a 2 in the chat if you think it's less important because of AI or, other factors. So 1 if you think it's still just as important, put a 2 if you think AI has kind of affected that. It's true that AI is, out. It's here to stay. It's only going to get bigger. But as of right now, there was a study that said people that have paid AI subscriptions, paid ChatGPT subscriptions, if they're looking for a service provider and they're doing a commercial search, if they're saying, find me a deck builder near me or a fence company near me, those people still say that 85% of the time they are using Google for those commercial searches. So although AI is important, you got to adjust for it. As of now, still SEO is the overall dominant player with all of this. And for right now, that's kind of how it's plans on. That's how I expect it to stay for these types of searches. For fact finding, for informational purposes, that's where AI is really starting to shine. So you need to make sure you have the website built out in a way that can accommodate that, and ideally ranking on AI still. But as of now, it's not the main priority, and SEO is still going to be the biggest driver of leads. But aside from this, if somebody's doesn't have a paid ChatGPT subscription, 87% of the time they are going to be using Google when they are looking for a service provider. So it's really important that you make sure it's optimized for that, and that's what I'm basically going to be covering here in the rest of it. So just type in SEO if you're doing any kind of SEO for the business. Okay, so once somebody types in, find me a deck builder near me, a fence company near me, this is kind of the breakdown, the different options that you can show up in. So 30% of people are going to be going to the ads, the local services ads, the Google pay-per-click ads. The local services ads are great for fencing, not really decking, because there are a separate category for fencing. So you can say, you're a fence contractor, but you only want installations. And then you can actually get your money back if you get a bad lead or somebody asking for a repair or they're out of area, spam call, somebody looking for work. You can get your money back for that. Pay-per-click is kind of the old school ad and, pretty tried and true method. Those work much better for decks. That's what we focus on for the decking side. But basically 30% of people go to these two sections in the ads. 45% go to the map pack. So it's absolutely critical to be ranking here. And I think even more for high ticket services like fencing and decking, wouldn't even be surprised if it was higher than that, because people want to know and read reviews on the companies before they reach out to them. So the map pack is crucial, this orange section ranking there. Then you have the green section here. This is purely the websites. So your website content, the backlinks on here, how much authority Google sees that your website has. That's what is going to help you rank in this green section. Whereas the orange section is a combination of your Google listing and your website. They kind of work together to rank in those sections. But if you total them up, so the 45, the 25, 70%, in order to get in those sections, you have to be doing SEO. So that's why it's so important to be doing SEO, because that's where the majority of the leads go and also the best leads. So it's really critical to be showing up there. And then you have your 30% for the ad section. So just to give you an idea from at least the decking side here. So this table here basically shows how often people are searching each one of these individual keywords every month on Google for each one of these. So as you can see, there's a very big diversity in terms of what people search on Google. Same thing with fencing. Fencing might even be more diverse. So what's key about this is, when you look at a website, you want to make sure that you are accounting for what people are searching in your area. So this is the whole United States this month, the search volume. But if you are doing SEO, you should be looking at the volume for each of these keywords and more in your area specifically. And if somebody's searching for, say, louver pergolas or pool decks, you want to make sure that you have those pages created on the website. Because if you have a competitor that also does louver pergolas, for example, and you don't, they're going to be much more likely to rank for that keyword because it matches exactly what they're looking for. And then also, Google will rank it higher as well, but also it's just going to look better if somebody wants a louver pergola to see some examples of that. So you want to make sure that you take a look at this, look at the fencing keywords. This is not even all of them for outdoor living, but there's a bunch of different ways that people search, and you want to see what they're searching in your area specifically. Once you have a good idea of that, that's when you will want to make sure that it is a separate page on the website for each one of these. So just a disclaimer here, you don't have to create one for every single one of these. Deck builders near me and deck builder, you don't have to have that. Same with deck contractor. Some of these work together, but if it's completely different and clearly different service, then you can create a separate page for it and be more likely to rank. So at the end of the day, when you do something like this, the whole idea is it's basically the equivalent of having more lines in the water if you're into fishing, or just a bigger net. So it's more ways that people can find your website, come to you, and then become a lead and, hopefully be able to work with you. So it's a really big deal to think through this and think about what people are typing in, so you can structure the website in that way and, be much more likely that a higher percentage of people actually find your website and want to reach out to you. So put a one in the chat if you feel like your website has these pages built out pretty well. You have the separate pages for services. Put a 2 if you're not that confident. All right. So if it was a 2, make sure you think through this, create these pages and find out what people are searching in your specific area. All right. So on page SEO, this basically just means all the stuff that's on the actual website page. So you want to make sure a couple things have been done correctly. So the good content, the content should match those keywords we were talking about. One page that matches what you want to rank for. Making sure there's a good user experience. Making sure we just talked about that, pages for each service, just like the cities, we talked about that too. And then make sure the content's unique. Sometimes see that websites will have kind of duplicate content for example, cities. It'll be like the same content, you just replace the city name. I don't recommend doing that. The keyword that you want to rank for, putting that in the title of the H1, and then strategically throughout the content. The meta description, that's what shows up on Google. So when you type in, deck builder near me, and you go to the website results towards the bottom, that meta description should kind of sell the click and be something substantial there, I guess, to convert. And then the name, the address, and phone number, putting that in the footer so Google can recognize that. Ongoing content, so Google doesn't want to see your website just kind of sit there. They want to see you updating it, and a great way to do that is with blogs. You can also do it with press releases, which works well. And then making sure the page speed is significant as well. So run some page speed tests. Okay, so to give you an idea with basically with the on page and kind of how to look at this. So they were, in this case here, they were basically, when Harpet Decks came to us, they're out in Tennessee. They weren't getting a whole lot of exposure. They weren't getting a whole lot of leads to the website. And, we had to actually move his location into a better area, but we also had to redo the website, build it to convert people, have the right pages on the site, all that stuff we've been talking about. And before working with us, he started at 2 million. And then after 1 year of just the website SEO, he added $1 million in revenue. So he was up to 3 million. And then this past year, he was actually able to get up to 4 million. So having the website, having the SEO done can be substantial. It just depends on your area and exactly where you're trying to target. But if the work is there, you want to be doing SEO. That's going to help you kind of target that exact spot that you want to get leads from. And then, of course, make sure you're getting those reviews too. So I know we're talking about the website, but each one of these leads and jobs that you sell, you need to make sure you're getting reviews for it too. So, of course, SEO does matter. I would say it's just as important as ever. We keep track of all of our leads, where they come from, so we kind of know the sources of each one. And SEO is definitely the clear leader. It's substantially more. I would say 95% come from SEO generally, but we do see some leads coming from ChatGPT in there too. It's just really low percentage overall. Curious to see if anybody checks how they rank on the Google Map Pack. So put a 1 in the chat if you've ever checked to see how you rank. You type in deck builder near me, fence company near me. Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever typed that in and you try to see how you rank on the Google Maps. You need to be checking this because if you remember the Map Pack, it gets almost half of all the leads. So you need to be making sure that you're checking that. Just be careful, because common thing I hear is, people might search, find a deck builder near me or a fence company near me, but they're searching from their office, where their main location is. That can be very misleading because Google will want to show businesses that are close to the searcher. So if you're located right on top of where, if you're searching from the exact location that you're at, you're going to rank number 1 very often. And you're going to, it's always going to seem like everything's perfect, when if you go a little bit further out, which is where you want to get and rank as far away as possible, that's when you can start to see that you're not showing up. So always keep in mind that, as you go around town, seeing how you're ranking on the Map Pack. In general, you're kind of looking at like a 10-mile radius, could be lower or higher depending on your competition, but don't expect to go in most areas, 20 miles, 30 or more, you're not going to really rank on the map pack there. But want to make sure you're ranking at least around your office. All right. So to optimize the Google business profile, make sure the categories are selected correctly. This is huge. So if you have the primary category set to say contractor, or I think it's like general contractor or construction company, something very vague. I see that a lot, especially if you're doing multiple services. That can absolutely harm your rankings for the services you want most and really not help you for anything else. So if you're choosing, if you want to primarily get more deck jobs or more fencing or whatever, make sure that the primary category is set to that specific service. And then also make sure that you're showing the address on there too. So this is another really big mistake I see often. Google business profiles will let you set up as a service area business. So basically hide your address, but that can be a huge mistake because if you're hiding it, that means it's going to be much lower rankings. So we've had it where clients were not showing their address to showing it, and the difference in rankings and reach was just incredibly different. So make sure you set up your address, show that. You have to do a video verification with Google. If you need questions or have questions about that, you can always reach out. We can share SOPs with you. Get to at least 30 reviews, but that's kind of just a rule of thumb where people start to feel comfortable around you. In reality, you got to check the competition. If you have competitors with 300 reviews, 30 is not going to mean a whole lot. You're going to have to really step up your game. Respond to all the reviews, even the bad ones. Don't get into shouting matches with them, and just respond, and ideally try to get them taken down is the best case scenario. Adding all your services, you can add all your services as products too, and then doing Google posts regularly is important too. The images, good idea to add images. So taking that those consistent photos is a good idea, and then adding them to the Google listing helps as well. A little hack here. So basically Google will rank somebody higher if they're open and somebody else isn't. So if you're open, say 9 to 5, and your competitors are open 8 to 8, you want to make sure that, what you can see is that basically that competitor can rank higher than you when you're closed. So if somebody searches 6 or 7 p.m. and you're closed, that competitor can rank higher just because Google wants to show that person as open. So it's a good idea to open up those hours. Ideally, you have some kind of answering service that's 24/7, and then you'll really be in good shape. But make sure that at least have a voicemail that people know they call the right place. But best case would be somebody actually picks up. Okay, so put a 1 in the chat if you feel like pay-per-click ads can drive ROI, and put a 2 in the chat if you're not convinced. They can be, well, here's kind of some pros and cons. The pros of them, with SEO, you have to earn your rankings. You have to get them up. It takes time to get those rankings that you want. With pay-per-click, it's fast. You can set up a campaign, start running them, and reach really anywhere you want. So that reach is much bigger. With a map pack, as I said earlier, it could be like 10 miles around there. With a pay-per-click campaign, it can be pretty much infinitely. You can run them anywhere you want. You can scale them as much as you want to. So you can have that control of the budget, scale them how you want. And yes, they can provide a good ROI if you know what you're doing. They can be a quick way to burn money if you're not careful. So you need to make sure they're optimized properly. But the biggest con with them is most people skip the ads, 70%. They can be expensive, and most of the time are. They are complicated. So if you don't know what you're doing, not sure how to set them up, you can get yourself into trouble. So you want to make sure that you have somebody that you trust to manage them. Otherwise, they absolutely could be a really bad return on investment. So this is what I typically see, how I see campaigns fail, and what I would recommend fixing if you're having issues. So landing pages, make sure you're not sending everybody to the homepage of the website. Google doesn't like that, basically the results are worse when you do that. Because if you think about it, if you send them to the homepage and maybe you do multiple services or your homepage is just not really clear on what you do, they might click an ad saying, they want to find a fence company or a deck company, and then they get to a homepage that's not specific to exactly what they typed in. So to fix that, having landing pages that are exact to what the service is. So if you're trying to find a vinyl fence company, and you go to a separate page that's just talking about vinyl fences, and then all the things you need to convert on there, the testimonial widgets, the contact forms, all the stuff we were talking about on the website, you need to make sure you're having that. So just like the separate landing pages you would want to have, you want to do that with separate ad groups. So whatever ad group that you're using, have those as separate. And then the text ads should match. So the whole idea is with Google Ads, you want to have a seamless experience. So if they're on Google and they're saying, hey, fence company near me, and they go and they see the different ads there, that ad text should match the keyword that they ranked. And then they should go to a landing page that matches it as well. So everything should be seamless. It should match exactly what they want. That's how you're going to get better results. And then also strong call to actions, just like we said with the website, you don't want to hide how to reach out to you, making sure that phone number is very clear and obvious, the contact forms, and throughout the content, making sure that you can see, how to reach you. Basically having those consistent call to actions on the page is really key. Okay, so just an example of one here, you can kind of see. So this is a completely separate website from their main website. It's on a subdomain. Their main website has different pages on here where you can click around. With a landing page, you don't want them doing that. It should have just everything they need to reach out. You don't want to get them confused, or their ADD kicks in and they just want to move around. So really key to have that on there, and you can show off your ratings, your reviews, the companies you work with, that kind of thing. That goes a long way too. So broad match, phrase match, exact match. Most of the time, Chris, phrase match is the way to go. That's usually the most common one, but depending on your budget, you can sometimes use broad match to try to uncover additional keywords, to try to get more. So it kind of just depends on your budget and, I guess what phrase match is usually the safest option, basically. But you might get to a point where you need to discover new keywords and new things that will convert people. You can use broad match for that. You just got to be extremely careful, really, with both of them, but broad match especially is having those negative keywords dialed in, because if you ran broad match without having it optimized very well, like you're going to just burn through money extremely fast and you'll start ranking for stuff you didn't even want. So you got to make sure if you're going to do that and use broad match that the campaign is optimized properly. So answer your question, phrase match. Phrase match most of the usually is the best option. Okay, so just an example here, client of ours. So basically their ad spend was 3,000. And I think this was over in the earlier or the off season, but they hit 27 leads. Average cost was 110 per lead. They actually converted 20%, which is really good. Ideally you want to be at 20%, but even if you're around 15 or so, that's not a bad conversion percentage. And then you can see the rest of the clicks, the impressions, and then the search impression share is a big deal too. So when you're running pay-per-click ads, you might want to do some digging to see how often you're showing up. So if you're running Google Ads and you're only showing up, say 30% of the time, that means you're missing out. The ideal search impression share is 80%. So you show up 80% of the time. You don't want to be 100 because you'll overspend. So say you were setting 40%, that means you're missing out and not showing for basically half of the demand there. So this is a really important stat because it shows you how often you're showing. And if you want to, if there's more people searching and you want to increase it to get more leads, that kind of tells you what's going on with that. Okay, so Facebook ads. Is anybody running, just put in Meta. Just type in Meta if you're running any kind of Meta ads. If you're not sure, Meta is Facebook and Instagram. They kind of just combine them. All right, Chris. All right. It's not a whole lot. So the big deal with meta ads is there's a stat done by, or sorry, a study done by Neil Patel, and he said people need to see your business roughly 23 times if you're selling B2C with a ticket price of 10,000 or more. So it used to be like 7 times, but now that everybody's bombarded with ads, it's a lot more. And that's why meta ads are a great way because you can follow them around. So if they show some interest somewhere, you can follow them around with ads and reach out. They're great for branding. You can even run different ads for that. You can scale them pretty much however you want. And it's a good way to set yourself apart, especially if you're making videos and things like that. You can set yourself apart there. Pros and cons of these. Pros, it's precise in your targeting. You can reach pretty much anybody you want. They're generally pretty cost effective. They're not as expensive as, say, Google pay-per-click ads. Retargeting, you want to use retargeting. That's huge. And just overall easier to manage than pay-per-click and just a little bit less complicated. So just a little bit easier. And then the cons, the quality of lead is the biggest drawback of them. So with Facebook or Meta, you're basically going to their feed while they're scrolling and wasting time and trying to get them to stop. With Google, people are going there because they are ready to act more often than not. So Facebook, you're kind of staying top of mind, making sure they remember you for when the time comes. And sometimes you get some good leads from there, but Google is definitely the king for like the best quality of lead. If you are running meta ads, make sure you have your follow-up process dialed in. And, basically you want to make sure that within the first 2 minutes, you're responding, ideally immediately. And they've done a study on that too, that they said like after 2 minutes, it goes down substantially. After 15 minutes, it goes down even more. So the speed to lead is a real thing, especially with how impatient people are these days. If they aren't getting what they need, they're likely going to go to a competitor. All right. So what I see them fail, how I see them failing is going to be not using video. So there is a new meta ads algorithm update in Andromeda. I think it was in August. But basically, they really highly emphasize the content, the video, to make sure that that is what will kind of drive how good the results are from your ads. So video is definitely the best way to do this. You want to make sure if you're running meta ads, you're getting video, creating some kind of video to engage with them. You don't want to use that generic stock photos. Even the regular images are not as good anymore. And then if you're running lead form ads, that is a Facebook ads form. So if you don't have a strategy built out for those and you just kind of run them, you're likely going to have some trouble. If you're not retargeting or not using them for branding, that's going to be a big deal too. That's where they really shine, is being able to consistently show off your business and put it in front of people so they don't forget you. And you can use that branding aspect to really show off, how great of a company you are, that kind of thing. Also, bad reviews. So reviews are going to affect everything. So if you're running meta ads or anything else, if people can find your reviews and they're terrible, it's gonna affect how good they work. They're just not gonna perform as well if people can find your reviews and you're sitting at a very low average. Not with the amount of competition that everybody has. All right, and then the best practice with meta ads is going to be to have top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. So what that means is you have different types of ads depending on where they are in their funnel. Like a bottom of funnel lead is like Google. They're like, hey, I'm ready to work. So tofu would be, just to let people know about you, getting the homeowner's attentions, find out, who's interested, and build trust, show expertise, that kind of thing. That could be before and afters, common problems that people have. Middle of funnel would be retargeting somebody, or maybe they saw your website, your social media. But this is be people that you can show off a little bit more about your process, how it works, the materials you use, comparing the material types, that kind of thing, just building on that knowledge base. And then bottom of funnel is going to be more for going to the sale. So just trying to get them to book an appointment, scheduling something, all of that is, going to be a way to just kind of get the sale and close the deal. All right. Social media. So, curious to see who's doing social media. So put a 1 in the chat if you're doing some kind of social media posting. Put a 2 if you're not. All right. Everybody's doing it. Okay. So with social media in general, if you can invest in this, and like I said in the beginning, it's usually something down the line or 3 million or more in revenue. It's best to handle internally because you can get the exact content you want. You can follow crews around, you can get the videos that you want. You can get better content overall. But the amount of social media users is just insane. It's 5.6 billion. So just about everybody uses it. And 253 million in just the US. So the numbers are just ridiculous. It is a good idea to have it, but you can do it internally. You can create better content, basically, especially that video content. That's how you're going to create the better video content. So pros and cons: inexpensive if you're doing it yourself, can be very expensive if you're hiring somebody in-house. But it's going to be about brand awareness, staying top of mind, letting people see about your business and behind the scenes, that kind of thing, showcasing your work, let them know who's behind the business, the owners, the team, things like that. And overall, just builds trust and familiarity. So people want to work with who they know, who they're familiar with. So that helps there. The cons, biggest thing is it's just hard to gauge the ROI. Most people do not reach out through social media specifically. So they're going to go to Google. If they like what they see, they'll eventually go to Google more than likely and reach out there. And just a overall lower lead flow. The biggest thing that I see, including with my own content, the consistency piece is tough. So batch posting, trying to post all multiple weeks at once or even a month or more is a great way to do it. Scheduling on your calendar, doing it once a week or once every 2 weeks, something like that, and just building out enough content for both of them. That's what's going to get that consistency. Because sure, a lot of people can relate here. If you don't have a plan or you don't have some kind of schedule around it, it's usually gets dropped and you forget about it. So make sure you're doing that. Okay. So the biggest thing that I see, we talked about all the different types of digital marketing. But the biggest issue that I see people facing with their marketing is definitely going to be actually responding to the leads. So people that if you're a company that's taking a while to respond to the leads, I got some stats for you. So leads responded to within 5 minutes are 21 times more likely to convert versus leads responded to after 30 plus minutes. So that speed to lead is so important. You got to make sure you're doing that. Leads that are not followed up within 15 minutes do go cold. So, it's so if you think about it, especially on the social media side, people have other options. They're going to reach out. So if your competitors are much faster about it than you are, they're likely going to get that lead. 78% of customers choose the company that responds first. So, you want to be that first person. You want to rank first. You want to respond first. And I've seen a very common theme with the companies that are doing big numbers, have a lot of revenue. They're usually the ones that have the dialed in sales process. Someone always answers the call. They know how to get the appointment scheduled and, making sure they don't miss anything. On average, business take 47 hours to respond to a new lead. So if you're doing that, you are definitely going to be having problems. And that's a great way to basically boost what you're already doing. Just like I was saying, the website is the hub of everything. The same concept there is with your sales process. So there's no point in spending a whole lot of money on marketing and getting leads if you're not going to pick up the calls, you're not following up. And like I see in the bottom here, average customer must be followed up with 5 to 7 times. So having different touch points, on the phone or text, email, all these different ways are a great way to make sure that you're reaching out to them and responding in a fast enough manner. Put a one in the chat if you're happy with your sales process and you feel like you get to leads quickly. Put a two if you feel like you don't, and it's a little bit. So one, if you like your sales process, you feel like you're getting leads or getting to the leads quick. Put a two if you feel like you're not. Nobody, huh? All right, Chris. Figured you guys are dialed in. All right. So ways to fix this: hiring an answering service, someone in-house to manage the leads, using marketing automation to reach out within the first 2 minutes once a lead is submitted, and then automate the follow-up so that you're getting touched at least 5+ times or engaging with two-way text messaging. So a lot of people prefer texting. So however they reached out, their preferred method of contact, you can make sure you're using that too. All right, so getting towards the end here. So this is just the timeline we talked about already and kind of what we see as being the best option, ways to work. Okay, so I know we did this in the beginning, but now I'm curious to see if anything's changed. So write down in your book, there should be a page for this, where you think you need to focus most after talking through this. You see any holes in your website, your SEO, your ads, social media, maybe your sales process. Write down where you need to focus most. And if you want, it'd be great to put something in the chat to kind of let me know what you're thinking too, where the biggest priority is. Give you a couple minutes. All right, keep going there. But you can also you probably saw this too, your top action items. So I want you to put in the top action items that you have, the top things that you want to focus on, whether it's your website, fixing your SEO, doing something with ads or fixing your ads, better about social media, hiring an answering service, put in those top 3 items there. All right. So if you're trying to plan your marketing budget, you can scan this QR code here, and this will actually link to a spreadsheet that will help you calculate your overall marketing budget. So you'll be able to enter your goal. That will tell you what your monthly revenue goal is. You tell what your average ticket value, your closing percentage, and then that'll say how many calls you basically need to hit your goal. So rather than kind of guessing of how to hit your goal, you can basically use this calculator to figure out exactly what you want to do. And then Matilde is also going to enter a link in the chat so you can see a web form version of this too. So Matilde, if you don't mind just sending that. And then this is the same link here, but this is also on another tab. It'll show you how you can break down the marketing percentage. So the Small Business Administration recommends, I think it's like 5 to 12%. So you can put in that percentage there to see what that budget would be, and then you can allocate it based off of online, offline, or repeat referral business. So you can put all that in there. All right. So if you do want to talk about any of your marketing stuff, just feel free to put something in the or basically just put a one in the chat if you're interested. If you want to talk more, let us know. And you want to get ready for the new year, we can always do an audit of your marketing. So all the things we were talking about here can go in and do a custom audit of your business specifically, and be able to figure out exactly what's going on and what could be done to either fix or add or remove, whatever the case may be for your business, based on the goals that you have. So if you do want any help with that, feel free to put a 1 in the chat, and you can also give us a call there too, or reach out through the website. And then Matilde did put the web app in here as well. So the web app is basically the same thing as a spreadsheet. You can reach out through, or you can figure out your budget there. So get an idea there. All right. So we're on all the social media channels. So you can reach out there as well. But if you do want to chat and you want to talk with us, just reach out through there, put a 1 in the chat, and we'll go from there. But that is it. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Hope it was worth everyone's time, and hope everyone has a great 2026.